The thought of independence for me, for Scotland, is an exciting concept. So this brief talk, which lasts about 25 minutes, is to give my view. Everyone has a different view, but lots of things that we need to do will be common. So here we go. The talk includes all of these items very quickly, including URL links where applicable. I recommend that you watch the whole thing through without pausing, and then using the video slider go back to the parts you'd like to read in detail. Self-determination, that's what it's all about. The ability to take control of our own country, to manage things for ourselves, to be our own country once again. The UK, with its Houses of Parliament and its two very adversarial, old-fashioned, archaic procedures that have been managing us since 1707, will disappear with independence. We will have a debating chamber, modern, dynamic, computers, no archaic procedures. I've even got to like the new buildings. Took a while, but they look okay now. In fact, the whole thing, the whole idea of self-determination is a good feeling, a feeling of self-control. The UK Parliament and the UK system is set up with 650 MPs, but because England is the highest area in terms of population, no matter what the other devolved areas want for themselves and for their people, they can never ever change what England wants. Since 1955, Scotland has only supported 7 of the parliaments that have actually run our country. Holyrood, which is done by the PR system, roughly gets the number of MSPs it has voted for as a percentage of the population in the vote. These are the 2016 Holyrood election figures. Only these parties support independence. The others, although they manage in theory for Scotland and they do well in committee, at the end of the day, the people in the non-highlighted areas support a foreign country. Their allegiance isn't just to Scotland. Only 52% of our Parliament actively supports Scotland. That's Holyrood. With independence, everybody in that chamber will only have allegiance to Scotland, and Scotland only. All the MPs, because they will be MPs then, not MSPs, support Scotland only. They are directly responsible and must act accordingly, and all parties will be funded in Scotland, by Scots, for Scots. If you believe in unicorns, well, I don't, but it seems strange to me that MPs as a breed can lie, change a tune every day, which is atrocious. In any other job I've ever worked in, if you did this all the time, you'd be unemployed. Perhaps in the future, in our written constitution, we constrain our MPs from blatant lying and the stupidity and childishness they currently show. We will have a written constitution. This controls and manages things so that people cannot abuse power, and we the people know our rights within the law. Any change to the constitution would have to be approved by the people in a referendum. This is indeed what happens in Switzerland, Ireland and many others. A constitution belongs to us all. Having our MPs close by in Holyrood, we the people can not travel far to do this, make sure they do what we want. The people are sovereign, and we must make sure that we do not allow them to drift. All countries have a central bank and its own currency. Scotland will be no exception. This simple slide shows you what a bank does. A central bank basically controls the money supply in the country to reduce and manage inflation. The facts are all here. It must also be free from political interference. Scotland will have its own currency. This image, found on the internet, shows Nicola with her hair getting ruined on a banknote of a possible future, obviously created by a unionist. However, it does show the Reserve Bank of Scotland, and maybe something like a true Scottish £20 note, Scots, without the same picture, obviously. In 2018, this report was produced and commissioned by the SNP about sustainable growth. The key thing in discussion and conflict verbally within it by people that read it is to do with currency. In this report, the author stated that for the first 6 to 10 years of an independent Scotland, that Scotland would use pound sterling, which would allow the Bank of England to control Scotland's interest rates, which meant that from the currency point of view we would not be independent. Many people, myself included, don't agree with this. It's also important in a future Scotland that a bank uses modern monetary policy to manage the money supply, so that we don't end up with a current system whereby they cut back and cause austerity for 10 years at a time. We must do something better than this, and modern monetary policy is the way to go. When you have time, come back and read this. It shows you the difference between a conventional bank and a bank running itself, a central bank, on modern monetary policy. It's well worth a read. We will have a Scottish pound. Assuming that we do get an election or a referendum at the end of 2021, as some people within the SNP have mooted, then this is a possible time frame between early September and November 2023, which would be our possibly Independence Day, with a currency following a couple of months later. This is all possible within the time constraints that this has been done. Currently our country, and indeed the whole UK, has been moving to a low-wage society, and also manufacturing has declined from 55% in the early 70s to 18 to 19% today in the UK as a whole. The figure for Scotland is 25%. As an independent country, day one it would be 34%. Manufacturing and wealth creates wealth. If we create wealth, we can afford social policies which help all of us, allow us to have a higher wage, fully skilled or semi-skilled, higher paid society. We must take a long-term view, and our government in the future must push manufacturing. The past has been, we have been let down by consistently poor government. In fact, in the 80s and 90s, the UK became deindustrialised, and most of our manufacturing went overseas. We lost it all. We lost the wealth generation. That is why with the COVID we are suffering more than most wealthy countries, because our economy is based on the internal service market. So when shops shut and people get depressed, everything declines. Long-term future, we must do something with investment banks, and the MPs must have a long-term strategy. They can't actually let things dither and work on 5-year cycles anymore. We must agree a policy within Parliament and the country, and no matter what happens with what parties in power, the main policy must be supported by all parties to make it grow, to help us all to help our social structures. Most of us know that Scotland has been very good at creating more and more renewable energy. So you actually see hilltop turbines, sea turbines, underwater turbines, pump storage schemes, solar panels. Scotland has a capability at the moment, although we can produce up to 90% of our power on a windy day from recyclable, renewable energy. We have the capability through undersea turbines and above sea turbines to generate at least 5 times more electricity than we, Scotland, will ever need. We could use this as a wealth creating thing similar to Norway's oil if we export it across Europe. Most of us know that Scotland's created a great deal of renewable electricity. Prior to 2015, Scotland had no strong high-capacity electrical links to England. However, since then, due to the fact England is short of power, lots of money has been spent moving electrical power from the renewable areas to usage within Scotland and also to England. The yellow lines are all new and they are complete. The blue lines are either being installed now or are in the final stages of planning and will be there soon. Scotland has gone from giving hardly any electrical power to England to now 16%, and that was in 2019. It's going up all the time. In 2019, Scotland did 82.5% renewable energy for itself. At the end of 2020, this had gone to 90%. Our vision could be that using all the turbines, especially underwater turbines and sea turbines, that Scotland could produce 5 times more electricity than it needs for itself. If we exported this to as many places as possible, this could, if we wish, be our wealth fund and replace the thing that we see in Norway. These photographs, all taken within the UK, show us clearly that everything isn't going well in our society. It is an embarrassment that one of the wealthiest countries in the world in terms of turnover actually allows this to happen. It's due to poor management and poor government over decades. Social care isn't just about poor housing, it's about education, respect, jobs, so many things. Within the UK, as this chart shows, it's actually 16%, that's 14 million people, are living in a definition of poverty. And even more crazy is the fact that 8 million people are working and still needing benefits because they're in poverty. We also have the lowest pension payments in the whole of the industrial world. This shows where wealth is split in the UK. You can see here clearly that most of the wealth per household is in the south of the country, the UK. And here's another definition of wealth in the UK. Scotland, as part of the UK, pays more to the centre than it gets back. For every pound we are given by the government of the UK, we give £1.50 back. With an independent country, we keep all that money for us. Most people in Scotland would like to think that they care more about people, and not everybody is self-centred. We all like personal wealth, but we would also like to help the people at the bottom of the tree in terms of economy. Social deprivation is everything. It's housing, education, income. All these things affect people. We need to have the will to do it, to create the nation's wealth. Reduce our tax system, make it less complex, therefore less easy to fiddle. Have a better welfare, less complex welfare system. We have to stop using all the old methods of doing things. We mustn't, in an independent country, copy the way the UK has always done it. This would be a real shame and a big failure. So, the government in an independent Scotland must use modern monetary policies to improve wealth distribution and reduce or remove high levels of austerity. We must look at best practice for social care overseas. We must create wealth. We must create businesses that increase higher paid employment, manufacturing, move away from the low wage economy, take long-term strategic policies supported by all political parties and stuck to by all political parties. Annual ground rent is a new way to tax. It totally replaces the current system, which is based on taxing wealth. With annual ground rent, you tax land. Wealth tax is easily fiddled and has complex tax rules, which allows people to remove their money out the country and therefore avoid tax. With annual ground rent, because it's taxed on land, you cannot move the land, therefore there will be no theft of tax. Everyone will pay tax that they are due. It works by different tax bands based on different attributes of land and property. So there might be, for instance, 5 different categories of land, several property types of building, urban building. The rules per square metre and cost will be decided by the Scottish Government. Not everyone owns land. If you rent property or rent land, you will have to pay a cost to the landowner, who is the person that's paying the tax, to reimburse them. And like now, if you rent things, give them a small profit. Here is an example. In that small table there, you see the cost per square metre. Using those figures and only those bands within Scotland, it would allow the Scottish Government to have an income of 78 billion, which is 14% more than they have now. Here is the impact on you. The first impact is that people that own land will pay more for it. People that rent land or property will pay higher rent. But this is offset by no other tax. Think about this. No other tax. No tax on income, no tax on money, no tax on inheritance, no tax on goods, services, no VAT, no council tax, no business rates. Think about it when you buy something. If you take 20% off. Insurance. Some insurance is quite high. There will be no tax on insurance. Only tax on land. And if you rent, then you pay the proper cost to the owner of the land. Obviously, there will always be people that genuinely, through whatever reason, can't pay, and like the system now, the government will have to allow and adjust for this. Citizens' basic income is a way of the government giving everyone, whether you're working or not, a set sum of money every year. The Scottish Government could afford this with annual ground rent, with increased wealth being created due manufacturing, better bank policies with modern monetary policy. We could do this. We could give each of our citizens, whether you're working or not, a tax-free income per year of between 8,000 and 10,000. Citizens' basic income works that if you're under 18, you get less money from the government in a CBI scheme, but if you're over 65 and retired, you get more, because this is your pension. Think about how this would work as an income. If you had annual ground rent, okay, you wouldn't pay a lot of taxes, although your costs would go up, but this would be offset. Obviously some people in society would have to end up paying more, but that's the way life is. The UK media is a disgrace. It is totally biased towards the right-hand view. So here is where we are with the news media, according to me. On the whole, the UK media is against independence, no matter what part of the UK you are in. The majority of printed and broadcast media supports a right-wing view of life. UK papers and media show a very poor understanding of Scotland and other parts of the UK on any topic. Sometimes this is political distortion, but quite often it's pure a lack of knowledge, ignorant of the country they live in. The media has poor governance because it's self-governance, allowing media to actually be unkind to people with very little comeback. The BBC is paid for by the state, managed by the state, and it serves the state. Much of our media is owned by companies and businesses and individuals overseas. Hopefully, with an independent Scotland, we can get these things. Obviously, it'll all be pro-Scotland. But we must somehow get a better balance of political views in the future. At the moment, our media is totally distorted and biased. We must ensure we have non-voluntary controls of the media. The media must be under statutory control to behave. That doesn't mean distorting the media. You can have a free media, but you must have discourse and you must have recompense. So that if you're actually seen and slighted by the media, you can go through a complaints procedure so that if you win, you may get some money, but if you win, you will definitely get the same space on the same page to have a go and get a retraction. We must try and expand the media to cover other smaller groups if at all possible, so that we do get a broad view in media. Also, I believe that in the future Scotland we should have Scottish ownership of all media. So if the business isn't registered in Scotland and owned by an individual and a company living and resident in Scotland, I mean the people here resident in Scotland, then you can't own a media outlet. This is what Norway does. We can have better media. The current one, as I say, in my opinion, is a disgrace. I had at this stage going to provide another summary of the whole talk, as you can read here, but I've decided not to. What is a country? A country is an area of land lived in by a people that recognise what that boundary is and managed and run by those people for those people. That is what a country is. In Scotland, most of us recognise that it doesn't matter if your generations go back as being Scots, traceable back to the Vikings even, but we also have lots of immigrants and people that have moved here over the centuries. They're all Scots, and it is us, we the people, that can make an independent Scotland dynamic, exciting, part of the EU, part of the world community. No more insular Brexit. No more inward-looking navel-gazing. Let's do a good job. We are Scotland. We are the people. Let's manage our MPs. Let's control our written constitution. Let's manage and create wealth. Let's stop poverty as best we can. This is a nice song by the Proclaimers. When you have time, go back and read this. It's actually about immigration into our country. It basically says we're all Scotland's story, no matter where we come from. In the year 832, this was the flag first used in recording history by a force of Gaels and Picts fighting against an English army whose general was called Athelstane. He ran a country which was part of the north of England, having a go at the Scots. The battle was held at Athelstane Fort, named after the English general. We are an ancient country. With independence, we can have a future with our past to create a wealthy country, a prosperous country, an international country, a country where its people hammer the MPs to do the job properly, who demand that the MPs plan ahead and do everything well for us, the people. We must, the people, and only the people, must ensure we are governed by the people. We must not allow MPs to govern us. Yes, we can, and yes, we must. Thank you for listening.